and Chad, and they are going to wow us with their presentation.
It's Marty's better.
That's right. High bar. Very high bar.
Wow. And she has like 1 million views.
Well, we want to just start by thanking you all for letting us be here. We are excited about the opportunity to talk to you guys. I know that we're all in a crazy world where we talk about recruiting. So we're obviously talking about digital marketing, but we also want to spend some time, and the majority of our time talking about recruiting. And so I was telling you here, we stopped at Whataburger to get some food, and they had a sign that said, "Sorry, we don't have enough employees to run the office," and so we had to go to the drive.
Really?
Wow.
Oh, okay. Well, but here's another stimulus. Yeah, thank you for that. So I know we're in crazy times, so we're going to just spend some time talking about recruiting today. So, Chad, you want to start?
My first? Absolutely. My name is Chad. Yes, thank you so much for allowing us to be here. I'm the Director of Operations for Homecare Interact. My personal bullet point, my wife and I are foster and adoptive parents. So some of these children in this picture are adopted, some are not. I won't make you try to guess because I promise you'll get it wrong. That our adopted children look so much like our live children. We have 6 of them. They're a ton of fun, but it is never, I say we never go anywhere quickly or we never go anywhere quietly. Everywhere we go, it takes a long time to get there, we're going to be loud. But we have a great time. They're a ton of fun. It's funny, I put these bullet points in here, obviously having no idea what we're just going to talk about. So I'm a Myers-Briggs ISTJ, I'm an Enneagram 5, and I'm a culture index philosopher. So that is the get to know me on that side of things.
Do y'all see this, or should we turn off the lights? Are y'all good? We're going to do a lot of screen time.
Yeah, there's a front row on it.
Yeah, oh, I'm still a goal.
Or maybe there's another light.
Where is it?
Yes.
That
Maybe we turn that one back on. There's no sleep. Turn this one on? Yeah, I think turn that one on and leave this one. There we go. Better?
I can sleep like that, that's fine.
Okay, so a little bit about me. Homecare Interact, obviously. Kind of bullet point, I don't have 6 kids, but I do have 3 amazing daughters. And I just like to solve problems, whatever that is. So whatever. In the right place. What is that? In the right place. Right place. Yeah. What's the problem? How do we fix it? So I enjoy that, whether that's at church or with soccer or whatever it may be. Myers-Briggs, ESTP. We all know what that means. Enneagram 8.
Yep, go 8.
Go 8.
Yes.
AKA 8 holes.
There you go.
Wear it proud.
Sounds pretty correct. I'm negative. That sounds great. But I will tell you, enterprise is kind of fun when he was talking about, hey, maybe when you let the person go, maybe you don't try this same job, you try this other job. And we were at a company previously, and it was very much that. There was once we went to culture index, we realized, okay, these people are on the wrong piece of the bus, and either they need to move to a different role, or they need to go, because your basically personality is not lined up for this kind of job. Because they're able to do thousands of people, like, if you're going to be the CPA or the accountant at you're going to have generally this personality type. This was extreme opposites we had in this role. And so it was really interesting to think about launching people, or as he said, love them well on the way out. We were able to launch people and say, hey, this wasn't a right fit, and in fact, maybe you should consider this over here. Maybe you should go into sales, in which you were doing something totally different. So I thought it was really good. I thought he was a great speaker, but culture index was a huge part of that, of learning that. So that's me. We got a lot of slides, so we're trying to go as fast as we can. So at the end of the discussion, you guys can bombard us and we can talk about all kinds of things. I will also say we are going to be here the whole rest of the day, going to the barbecue, hanging out, so available for all kinds of dialogue. We're going to spend the rest of the time on a presentation on recruiting, but I want to talk just one slide about digital marketing, just in case you guys don't engage with us later and have dialogue about it. So digital marketing, 2 things I want to make sure you're taking away from here. The first one is talk to Emily. You should be engaging with her on a regular basis. When I say regular basis, how much you would like to talk to her, maybe once a month, every other week. Some of you like on through every 2 or 3 days, like that's what, which is great. I want to make sure that you're doing that.
Can I add something to that? I just want to add, I want to underscore that. If you're not happy with if any of your SEO or pay-per-click results, it takes, and we did this with Kigo beforehand, I had a standing meeting every week with Kigo. So it takes some time to massage things to make sure you get the right target keyword searches. So I would just put that disclaimer out there. If you're not happy, you need to be engaging on a regular basis.
And I'm going to use a very similar example. So I know Jacob's not here from Waco. The second thing is I want you to logging into your dashboard and listening to the calls. So Jacob obviously runs a pretty sizable office here in Waco. It's been great. He's been listening to every call for the last couple of months. Well, what is that? We say, hey, log into your dashboard. Well, why? Well, I logged in my dashboard. I listened to these calls that we're paying for clicks for, and they're not turning into customers. They turned into calls, but we spent 2 hours or 30 minutes talking to them about why we don't take Medicare or whatever it is, and so let's change up the clicks. Can we search for different terms? And that's literally what we're doing in Waco right now. We're getting rid of a whole section of terms that we've been bidding on. And so want to encourage you to engage with Emily, and second, want you to listen to those calls that are valuable. It will help you with your staff on just encouraging them on how to convert some of these calls. Those are my 2 things. I'm going to hand the rest of it back to you.
That's awesome. I just want to, sorry, I'm pausing, but the dashboard, I just want to make sure everybody knows there's a dashboard and knows how to log in, knows their login, and knows their password, because I don't think everyone does.
Okay, dashboard.homecareinteract.com is where you would go. Again, C number 1, talk to Emily if you have any questions. She can help you. Make sure you get logged in. She can walk you through it. Hey, click on here. You'll be able to listen to the inbound calls that you're paying for, people who come to ads, and you'll be able to see what
There's great coaching opportunities. Don't listen to lead calls. Fantastic coaching.
Thank you.
All right. We're talking about recruiting for a while. I'm super excited about talking about recruiting with you all today. I want to say up front, I recognize that for you all, this is not like a thought exercise. We're not like putting together a paper on how to do recruiting. This is something that y'all feel every day, day in, day out. And I just want you to hear me say, I know that. I hear that. We've talked to y'all. I think we have some stuff here that's going to help. I think we've got some good information. I just want you to know that we acknowledge these are tough times right now for you all. We feel it with you. We've got a lot of material to cover. That being said, I'm going to try to move pretty fast. I'm going to talk about some goals for our time here real quick today. The first one, let's not reinvent the wheel. So by working with a number of offices, we get to see things. We see what works over here. We see what works over there. And there are things that we have learned, patterns that we have found. And so let's get those patterns to you. Let's not have you try to figure out how to reinvent the wheel on some of these recruiting things. Let's capitalize on what we've already learned. Next one, there is no silver bullet. What I want to be able to stand up here and say is, if you do these 3 things, everything will come together for you. And that's just not the way it works on recruiting in this space. There are a lot of little things that when all put together can work, but it's unfortunately a lot of little things to achieve the most success. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. The last one, we want to be in this boat together. We want to be in with you. A lot of you already, we are in this boat together. We want to continue to work together to equip you, to empower you to do the best things that we can do, or that you can do on the recruiting front. Next. Yeah, so here's my, I said it at the beginning, I'm going to say it again. Here's recruiting caregivers is hard, and we want to help. This is our goal for this time, for today. Let's talk about some things that we can do to help you. So first of all, and again, I'm going to have to move fast here. I'd like to create a common language here real quick. I've got a couple slides just making sure that when I say a term, we all mean the same term. I'm not going to teach you anything here. We're just making sure that we understand we're all saying the same thing when we talk about what ad spend is and what a job board is and the things like that. We're talking about some challenges. There's some things in this space that are just kind of unavoidable. We don't have any control over them, but let's call them out. Let's talk about them. Let's make sure we understand what they are. And then let's put in a plan of action to go out and try to recruit a lot of caregivers. So that's what we're going to cover here in the next few minutes. This, I promise, is my most nerdy slide. We won't do a lot of nerdy stuff in here, but I do have to do one. And so I'm going to read this definition to you all about the scarcity mentality. Scarcity mentality refers to people seeing life as a finite pie, so that if one person takes a big piece, that leaves less for everyone else. most people, particularly in the corporate world, have been conditioned to have a scarcity mentality. I'm going to refer back to this slide. One of the things that I think we need to battle as we talk about this is the scarcity mentality. And I know you're already thinking like, no, it totally is. So let me concede a couple things here. First of all, when we're talking about budgeting, scarcity mentality rules budgeting. I'm not saying there's never a place for the scarcity mentality. If you spend $10 on something, you don't have that $10 to spend anywhere else. I get that. There's scarcity mentality when it comes to budgeting. There's also scarcity mentality when it comes to the actual caregiver. Like, if that caregiver takes a job with another agency, then they're not taking a job with you. So there is scarcity mentality even in and around this discussion, but where there is not as much as I think we want to believe is in these strategies. A lot of times as we're talking about a recruiting strategy, it's going to be tempting to think, oh, well, I mean, I've tried that before. It didn't really pan out very well, so we just don't do it. There's no silver bullet. There are a lot of things that we need to be okay with talking about, even if they're not monumental success, because I'm going to show you all here kind of at the end of this presentation, the little stuff really does add up. And so try to fight this idea, try to fight the idea that, well, I mean, if I'm spending time on that, that means I'm not spending time on this. We're already spending time on the most important thing. Let's be okay with peppering in some time on some other things because it really will help. It'll make a difference. So there, I'm done with my most nerdy slide. We're going to build up a little foundation here. Again, this is all about terminology. I'm going to build this up here as we talk about what are the different layers and levels as we're putting together a recruiting strategy. The first, and I think the most important, I'm still not here, no worries, is you got to have, this is kind of like pay to play stuff, right? Like you got to have a job application. You got to have some sort of system where you're keeping track of who's interested in your job, getting into the hiring process. These may not be technological. These may not be fancy. That's totally fine. But at some level, you have to take the information from the person that's interested in the job, and you have to keep track of that person and then know if you're going to interview them once or twice. And so that's all I'm saying here. We got to define those things. You have to define those things for your office before we can start putting some of this more complicated stuff on. Again, I'm not teaching you anything. I'm just saying we have some terms that are important as we move on in the discussion. The next layer that you're building up is job boards. So we have these jobs. We need to get them out there. We need to post them somewhere so that people can apply for them. The company website job board, so those of you all that work with us, we have one of these already. Applicant Stack hosts your job board, and it's linked to from the Visiting Angels corporate site. This is important because if you meet someone around town or on the street in a relationship that you have and they're interested in applying for a job, you don't want to say, go search for us on Indeed. There are plenty of other people on Indeed. We'll talk about that in a second. You want to have someplace to send them where that you own, that you know, like, hey, if you go here, you're gonna apply for a job at my place and not go search on Google or go search on Indeed or whatever. So again, pay to play. Make sure you have a place that is your job that you can send people to in the various ways that might happen. Then there's third-party job boards. So there's Indeed, Glassdoor. We're going to talk about these a lot. These are places where lots of companies post jobs and job seekers go to find them. Third-party job boards, other companies. So now we're building up kind of the next lever here. We've got a process. We've got some jobs out there. What are some other things that we can think about to maybe optimize and to come up with a better recruiting strategy? Job titles, we're going to talk about this a little bit. There may be more result here than might meet the eye, and so we have some data that we can show and talk about. Think about what job title are you posting in these various areas? Where are you posting it? So most information about job postings are very location-based. Let's think about where you're posting that job, and we'll talk about that more in a second. And then there's other sites that are not necessarily job boards, but there are places where people commonly go look for a job, like Craigslist. Maybe talk about that and what results we might be able to get there. Again, I'm going to talk about all this stuff. I'm just building up. There's no point in thinking about whether or not you want to post a job on Craigslist if you don't have a system in place with a job application for those people to apply. And so we're just building up this layer here. The top level, this is when it gets, we really just have a lot of different places that we could spend time and energy and money, and we have to start dialoguing about what's going to be the most successful for your business. So a candidate nurturing journey, this is the idea that you have someone that's expressed interest in a job, but they haven't completed the application, so you can't interview them, you can't hire them. What does your process look like for helping get that kind of from point A to point B? Technically, it's called a nurturing journey. How are you nurturing them along that process? There's other sites that I wouldn't even call job sites that you can work on, things like Facebook and Google. Is that part of our strategy? There's physical job postings. We're starting to talk with some offices about, like, what if we put a QR code on a flyer that links to this job application in this applicant tracking system, so someone could see it on a poster and then still get into this process. Maybe it's physical job postings that make a difference, and how are we using QR codes and short links and things like that to continue to work on that strategy. And then the last one is sponsored job postings. So almost all places where you post a job, those companies would be more than happy to take some of your money to elevate that job or to make it more prominent. And so again, when we have these other places, when we have these other elements in place, then we can start talking about, are there places where we want to sponsor jobs? We want to pay the board some money to do that. I want to pause real quick. Any like verbiage questions? Does any of that not make sense? I know I'm trying to go so fast. We're on the same page about terminology. Great. So another, again, just let's create a common language around some terms. Where are the dollars going? So I'm going to encourage you all to do this, whether you do it on your paper, if you're taking notes, or if you just want to do it in your head. There are different areas that we can spend money, and I'm going to try to put those into buckets as we talk about our overall spend on a monthly basis for recruiting. Obviously, we have employee costs. I'm assuming you have employee or multiple in your office. There's software. What are you paying for the tooling? There's third-party costs. Are you paying a contractor to do some of that lead nurture, some of that candidate nurturing and things like that? And the last one is that ad spend around paying those different job boards. So here's my cheat sheet for you as you're working out that equation in your head. So this would be the number of employees that you have. Do you have a half of an employee? Do you have an operations manager that's doing some recruiting and some other things? Do you have one employee, 1.5, 2? I don't think anyone's gonna have more than 2, but if you have more than 2, you'll have to use your iPhone calculator, because I didn't make the cheat sheet go out that far. And then how much is that person making on a yearly basis? And so you can find your spot on here and know what number to put in that first box for employee costs. So I'll go to the next slide. So here's 2 totally fictitious. I don't have insight into these things. These are not sample offices that we work with. This is just me making up kind of a smaller recruiting budget and a larger monthly recruiting budget. So let's say a smaller office, maybe it's $2,500 a month for that employee cost. If you're working with Homecare Interact and you're on our tier 1 offering, maybe $350 that you're paying for the software. If you're a smaller office, you're probably not paying a third party to do any sort of follow-up or anything like that for you. And then maybe you're spending $200 a month on Indeed. So your total monthly recruiting budget is going to be $3,000. You can see those numbers there. Again, I'm going to save some time here, but there are larger numbers, obviously, for a bigger office with more recruiting spend. Here, you can go ahead and go. Yeah. So there's some percentages in there because I'm a math guy and I like percentages. Here's the big takeaway I'm wanting to make from this slide real quick.
Hey, Chad. Before you do it, what I'd love for you guys to do is to actually take this as the time. If we're going to pause at any point here, just take the time to do this exercise for you to write it down on a piece of paper. Like, okay, I've got that person. They're probably a quarter dedicated, and they're fully dedicated recruiting. For you to really kind of process how much are you spending currently on recruiting. It'd be great if one of the few things you walk away from here is go, okay, this is half my business is getting caregivers, recruiting, and then this is the, getting clients over here. What am I spending? What is it really cost where, he's going to try to help you break it down, but for each one of you, I don't know whether you actually write it down, close your eyes, whatever, but to come up with like, what is this for my office? Is it 1.5 people? I mean, what am I paying them on average with benefits and all that stuff? It needs to be a fair thing for you to process through. And then, like you said, we have some offices that are paying a third party to help interview people, and they're spending $1,000 a month just to get people to interview. And so for you to have a number in your mind, this is something we like to do on the digital marketing side, just for you to get an idea of what's the value of the individual customer here. And I think it's good for you to kind of go, hey, I'm at about $8,000 a month on recruiting. This is what I spend on. What's that number for you? So, take a second, think about it. Wait for it. Wait for it a second.
I need the other thing back.
Yeah, go back.
Oh, did you go back to my cheat sheet? Sorry.
Cheat sheet.
Here it is. Here's my cheat sheet.
So yeah, what we're trying to do here is saying if you got a half person and with benefits, they make $30,000, so it's $1,250 a month that you're paying in payroll costs. Now, again, we don't know what you're paying employees. We just put some numbers up there. So.
lot more.
Talk about too much stuff.
Yeah.
I guess we're gonna end up presenting a bunch of data to you guys. I think it's good for y'all to walk away with a few things like, oh gosh, I may need to be thinking a little bit more, or a little bit less, or how do I do this more efficiently, you know? But having a number in your mind of what you're spending is a nice thing, and especially even on those on digital marketing, like I said, knowing what a value a customer is to you impacts how you might spend money to market for those. Sorry.
No, you're great.
You're trying to go fast.
I'm trying to go fast. Okay, we're gonna get it. You go back, sorry, go back one more. So here's the big, Cody's right. I think having this number is important for you. My hope with this slide is to communicate all of these knobs are adjustable. And I think sometimes we get focused on one particular thing being the thing that's gonna make a difference. And I think as we dialogue moving through this presentation, we need to think about all four of these knobs and what needs to happen to them. So like, for example, maybe you have plenty of employee time following up with leads and there's no one coming in. Well, then maybe we need to talk about turning this knob up a little bit and give Indeed some money and get more people coming into the top of that funnel. Maybe you have so many people coming in that you just can't possibly follow up with them all. Well, maybe it's time to talk to a third party about follow-up, or maybe it's time to pick up another employee. Like all four knobs can be turned and can have results. And so let's be willing to have that conversation about which knob needs to be turned either up or down, to Cody's point, to get the right balance. And then let's not be pigeonholed on just one particular thing. So for just a second, think, who is responsible for recruiting at your office? I'm going to say this a different way. Who, and there you go. Who owns the number the new caregivers hired? Hopefully someone owns that number. So go ahead. So for the next, I'm not going to ask you to raise hands. We're not going to it doesn't matter to me. It matters to you that you know. Go ahead. So maybe you said you're the director of the office. Maybe you said you're responsible for that number. I think that's totally fine and great. Maybe you said recruiting manager. Maybe you've got a recruiting manager, recruiting director. That person's responsible for that number. They own that number each month. I think that's fine. I'm hoping none of you said Homecare Interact. And again, I'm not going to ask for a show of hands or people for testimonials. My hope is that no one thought that Homecare Interact owns this number for you. And here's why. I don't think we have enough information about the happenings in your office to own this number. But let me give you an example. We have offices that get 10 to 12 new candidates into applicant stack a month. And we have offices that are somewhere between 80 and 90. Now, maybe not in the last couple of weeks, but as we look at historical averages, maybe 80 or 90 a month coming into the funnel. We have no way of knowing, was 12 too many or was 90 too few? Like we don't know. We don't have that information about what does your turnover look like? What, did you just sign up that new 24-hour care person? Like we don't know enough about the day-to-day happenings to make good decisions, to manage this for you, for us to own the number. It has to be someone. What? 90's too few. That's great. See, we're learning something. This is great. 90's too few. And so hopefully no one said Homecare Interact. I don't think we can be the right person to own that number for you. That is my point for this slide. And we're going to get to discussion at the end. And so if you want to have discussion about what it would look like for Homecare Interact to be responsible for that number, I think Cody and I are fine to have that discussion. I'm just saying right now, today, coming into this presentation, I don't think we're aware of enough of what's happening in your office to own that number. That's what I would say.
I would just also make an encouragement. I think we were looking at the other side. You see how much you're spending on the payroll side of things, and I think
she's always listening.
She's always listening. You guys touching your wife. I think you want somebody in your office that you can talk to that's owning this number and going, hey, where are we? And then they have 10 different tools in which they can turn. Hopefully one of them is our knob, and we go, hey, can we do something different here? You know, and so I think the right decision is you have somebody that's feeding the dog, you know, somebody and not everyone. But this person, are you thinking about? Sure, we're all on recruiting. You know, I love your statement. We used to say that in our old job. We're all hiring people because we need to hire 1,300 summer staffers a year. And so it was a lot. But we would all say we're recruiting. But there's somebody who is responsible. Who is I'm responsible for that.
Great. So we've made it to the second point in my outline here. We're going to talk about some challenges that exist in this space. Again, this is when I'm going to start maybe telling you some things you don't already know, which would be awesome. I hope that that's true. We're going to try to educate about some challenges that happen in this space and how I can prove most of them with data. So here's the first challenge that we're talking about. The first challenge is timing. I don't agree with this, but it is reality. So the third-party job boards that we're all posting jobs to, they have decided that a job posting that is more recent is more relevant. Again, I don't agree with it, but it doesn't matter what I think. That's what they've decided. And so when a potential caregiver is searching for a job, the job that was posted more recently is going to be at the top of the list. Now, for you all, that's kind of a bummer because you needed caregivers 3 years ago, and you needed caregivers 2 years ago, and you needed caregivers 1 year ago. And so we kind of got to play this game a little bit. Like, your need didn't change, but we have to kind of make it seem like it's a new need this week. And so here's how I'm proving that. Again, we post a lot of jobs for a lot of different offices. The way that I can show that is a job that we post, 40% of the people that apply for that job, 39%, are going to apply in the first week. The job's still out there the second week, then it's 30%. After 14 days, we're down to 12%, 8%, 7%. It's just, this job didn't change. The only thing that changed is the amount of time that it was on the job board. The description is still the same, the title's still the same, everything about this job is the same. Just as it's been on the job board longer, they just push it further and further down. Again, I don't agree, it's reality, it's what we're dealing with. And so we need to figure out a way to combat this by making sure that we're kind of playing this timing game along with them. Don't worry, we've got some strategies, but this is one of the challenges that we have to deal with, is they're going to make our job seem less important over time. The next one is demand. We're feeling this. So Google tracks for us searches worldwide, nationwide for particular terms. And so the way that I watch this is I'm watching the Google Trends result for the search caregiver job. I understand most people that are getting a caregiver job are probably not searching on Google, but at least gives us some sort of metric or scale to watch. I could spend the rest of our time caveating things about this data set that I don't like. It's not a good use of our time. The point I want to make is it changes. This is not a line that looks like this over the last 5 years. It's a line that looks like this over the last 5 years. And so we have to play this game. We have to be aware that demand is going to be up, demand is going to be down, and how are we going to manage that as we move through the process? And we'll talk about some tactics for that as well. The third one is competition. I can't control this. So the thing that we watch to try to gauge this is if you look on Indeed, and if you can't picture this in your head, don't worry, I have a slide and a couple that will point this out. But when you search on Indeed for a caregiver job, it'll tell you how many jobs there are in your city in the search result. It'll say job one of whatever. So we track that for all the offices that we work with, how many total jobs are posted in that city. We have some offices that are the 20s. We have some offices that are over 600. Cody was looking up one this week for a sales call. 1350 caregiver jobs on Indeed.
Within 25 miles.
I wish I could go tell everyone else, stop looking for caregivers. You don't want them, but I can't. And so we have to deal with the fact that there's competition. There's other people searching for these jobs, and it's highly variable. It does not have to do with the size of the city. It does not have to do. I have yet to find the thing that determines what this number is. I will keep working on it because this is what I like to do. I'm an Enneagram 5, but I don't have an answer for you now on what determines why. I mean, for example, this may be the same size city as this right here. I mean, I've spot checked it for you to try to find consistencies. I'm like, same size town, similar part of the country. I'm like, what is, the Indeed competition is just totally different, and I've got nothing to measure it against. The point is, it does vary, and we need to be aware of this as we're coming up with a strategy. So those are three kind of challenges that are outside of our control that we all need to be aware of. What are we going to do about it? So I'm going to talk about particular tactics that we're going to do, or that, well, so for those of you that are paying us to manage your stuff, we are doing a lot of these things for you. If you're not, or if you want to do them in addition to what we're doing, here's some things that need to happen, I feel like, to recruit candidates most successfully. The first one is, you need that job application. I know I joked early on that you could do it with a clipboard and a piece of paper, and I think that's totally true, you could. But the reality is you need a responsive, mobile optimized online job application. So 60 to 65% of candidates of offices that we're working for are applying on a mobile device. It's just where we are. And so if you do work with us, you already have this. Applicant Stack provides a responsive mobilized job application. If you're not, make sure that you're looking for this. Make sure you're finding something that is responsive and mobile optimized, because this number's not going down, it's only going up. The next thing is get the right amount of information at the right time. Again, you guys know this. If you make the process too easy, then you get, I call them and they don't call me back, or I actually schedule an interview and they no call, no showed. Yeah. We want them to have some skin in the game along this process for us to continue to invest time in them. But on the flip side, if it's too hard, if I click on that on my mobile phone to apply for a job and it's just this wall of questions, then I'm just gone. I mean, I don't have time. I was searching for a job real quick, while I was waiting for my food at a restaurant. I don't have time to fill out this application. I now have no candidate. It's not that they no call, no show. I just didn't get anyone. So we want to get the right amount of information at the right time in the process. And then the last part is we want to get the right information at the right time. So you may only ask 3 questions, but don't get their first name, their t-shirt size, and whether or not they like Burger King or McDonald's. Like, get that contact information. We want to be able to do that nurturing journey that I was following. We want to be able to follow up with that person. This person has expressed interest in a caregiver job. Now, they may have expressed interest just to check the box in employment. We totally get that, but some of them didn't. Some of them expressed interest and they just got sidetracked. And so let's reach out to them and see if we can get them to finish that process. So these are key components, I would say, as you're looking for an online job application and the application process and what that should look like. All right. You need someplace to keep track of these people. Again, I'm going to encourage you to use an ATS, an applicant tracking system. These are very common now. I would not try to keep them all in a Google Sheet. There's lots of tools. We like Applicant Stack just for a couple of reasons. One, it integrates with popular job boards. So we're going to talk about that here in a second. With job boards, it's pretty straightforward to get our jobs posted to these third-party job boards. Cody worked really hard with them to create an integration with Access Care, which is obviously super beneficial to most of you all. And so those people can flow into Access Care. You don't have to type that information in twice. Huge, huge win for productivity. They do have this customizable job application. It's responsive, it's mobile friendly. We can swap questions out. We can move things around based on the needs. I know some of you have specific state requirements and things like that. We can work with Applicant Stack to get those things tweaked out correctly. And then lastly, just reasonable cost. I mean, there are some applicant tracking systems out there that paying for the software would be more expensive than your monthly recruiting budget. And so Applicant Stack has a very approachable price point, which is one of the things that we really like about them. Do you have any other quick thoughts on Applicant Stack? I know that
you've been processing a couple that are more than $5,000 a month. So you're right.
Yeah, you can pay a lot of money for an ATS. It's pretty ridiculous what you can pay for software in that space. But I think you need somewhere to keep these people. So let's talk about job postings. Again, timing is key. So what we have found to be very effective is to continue posting new, fresh jobs every week. Here's the tricky part. If you post a caregiver job every week on Indeed, they're going to flag you. They call that spamming or scamming or whatever. They won't let you do this. They won't let you post the same job to Indeed over and over again. Because they would rather you pay the money to sponsor the job. So what we do instead is we do post a new job to Indeed every week, just with a different title. And so we have 15 different titles that we rotate through. We have some that are just kind of stock. We have some offices that have requested specific titles they want to either trade out or use instead. We're great with that. The point is you want a new, fresh job posted very regularly so that you're staying at the top of that list. Now, I know some of you are already slipping into the scarcity mentality here, and you're thinking, live-in home health aid, no one's going to apply for that. We should just skip that one. It's so tricky. It's not that no one will apply for it. It's just fewer people will apply for it than at-home caregiver. But we can't discount the fact that some people will apply for that job. To what level? I will show you the offices that we work with. For every candidate that applies for a job with caregiver in the title, there's another one that applies for one of the 13, 12, whatever other job titles.
Where did you guys get those job list postings? The combination.
That predates me. I don't know.
You're saying
in-home? Yeah, I'm just curious where y'all got those. Because you're trying to get
this guy in Waco, Craig, you.
Were you really softball?
I mean, I can explain. I'm curious to know if they're current with everything going on, if this is where I'm going.
And so, what I would say is we have lots of different ones because we say these are our standards. So if you just start with us, we start with these 15, but we have some offices use almost none of these and have all different ones. And so we can still track, like, oh, what's being most successful in
What's trending?
What's trending with
Yeah.
people doing. And then there are some that you got to be careful. Indeed, the most particular. They don't want you to like advertise your $500 bonus as part of the job description. They have some things in which they can pick you out for. But basically, what we're trying to do is making sure that we're kind of covering the 3 or 4 majors or offices. So, caregiver as a term, home health aide as a term, ACA as a term, and sometimes with housekeeping.
Elder, is there a thing, like anything like elder care or elder something related?
So we have, like I said, these are not the only 15.
Okay.
We can look across all, and I don't know how many total job titles and descriptions, because it's not just we're swapping this out. We've got to try to go as far as tricking Indeed.
Okay.
We got to change out titles and then move some paragraphs around and do some things so that they think, hey, here's this new job. And so this is where a lot of the work in the lady in our office is doing this. It's, okay, how do we create this job description? And so we have some offices that have to fully customize ones, and we have to spend some time with them going, it also needs to have this word repeated over and over again because we wanted to rank. If they're using any kind of SEO mindset to it, meaning like a search for housekeeper, well, how many times is the word housekeeper used in a job description? And so we want to make sure that's in there. So we're trying to like game the system. Yes, sir.
The thought to maybe come up with more intriguing titles, because these are very, I mean, they're proper titles, but the market, the caregiver market, they're not the most sophisticated market, which sometimes it might be better to say, make money caring for seniors. Could that be a job title?
I think it can, as long as you're not, there's like a couple.
Indeed has all kinds of stipulations. That may be borderline. I mean, to your point, I think we could probably be more creative than these. I don't want to lose the essence of what you're saying. But make money doing this, probably, I think Indeed would see that as, you're not allowed to solicit in the title. And so we have to figure out, are we trying to encourage them to click on this with the title? And I think they might say make money in the title might be across the line. I don't know, we can try it and see.
I've seen a lot of my competitors will say overnight caregivers, day caregivers, evening caregivers.
12-hour shifts, would you ever like?
Right, 12-hour shifts, like.
I do a lot of
are there
12-hour
different things that we can insight in that?
What you're saying is one of the things that we're trying right now. I mean, we've got a couple of offices that are trying evening caregiver, morning caregiver, afternoon caregiver, all day caregiver. And then, like Cody said, we'll watch the numbers and see
Warm body.
which ones are going to
Warm body needed.
Warm body. Come on.
Warm body needed.
Come to Mississippi.
Have you guys been tracking, like, how well is this keeping things at the top? Because we're sitting here having meetings on how we can stay on the top of the front page. Indeed has their own team saying, we need to get more people to pay for ads.
Absolutely.
And people are getting, so we're trying to work this and they're trying to basically unwork you. So is anyone tracking that to see what is the trend? Are they going to something else? What's the next?
Well, it's hard to get Indeed to talk to you about what they're doing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's a guessing game. And so we're watching that graph that I showed. I mean, we can watch, are we successfully getting more people to apply in that first week? You know, are we staying, up top of that list?
And I would say one other thing is that we interact with each one of the Indeed reps. So for any of you that we're posting on Indeed for, there's a rep for your office. And a lot of you are also paying Indeed on top of what we're doing. And so in that integration, we get to interact with the Indeed reps. And so what's neat is we have pretty decent relationships with, let's say, a handful of them. And so they kind of talk to us, but they can't say anything official. They're like, you could probably do that. Yeah, that might, it's really hard because they don't want to give their secret sauce away. But it's been nice having those relationships because we can then kind of, well, what do you think about adding this 12-hour shift? Is there any data on people searching for a number in their job search? And so we can kind of ask some of these questions that are not publicized anywhere out there. So we're working on it.
It's a guessing game for sure.
And I know I've asked this question before. I know Indeed, if you spend, it used to be over $2,000 a month, they give you kind of priority posting. They also give you some other little bells and whistles and trinkets that help out. We have such a large organization. Is it at all possible to parcel out into smaller groups and then maybe have a landing page where it's similar to what's happening now, but then they select I'm applying for Boise, Idaho, or,
Great question. I asked, probably our favorite Indeed rep this recently, because we have one of our larger offices saying, okay, what does it look like to go to the next level? And there is a couple $1,000 next level tier for them. They even have one that you just pay them after an employee's been on staff for you for X amount of days. You know, I mean, they have all kinds of tiers.
Yeah.
But they did not want to entertain anything that has multiple offices.
Of course.
They're like, no, it's $2,000 per office. And I'm like,
Is there any way to do it without asking permission?
yeah. I would say what we are trying to do right now is to try to game the system as much as we can to keep the cost down as low as we can. There are some other options in which we want to spend more money that we can evaluate. Is it worth it there, or should we be spending money in other places? And I think that's the discussion we want to have with each office. Like, with your person in charge is over recruiting, like, you want to spend another $1,000. Where should we spend it? Where should we go with that? And is it all straight to Indeed? Or is it a little bit of Craigslist? Is it Facebook ads? Is it Facebook job ads? Like, and there's a lot of different ways we want to try to slice that. So I don't have to directly answer your question there, but there's a lot of options, and that we can go and trying to figure out how do we spend the next dollar? Where's the next best dollar spent?
Good. Yeah, sorry, we're trying to go fast. I'm not going fast enough. So for every one person that applies for a caregiver job, you now have another person that applies for the other job. So is any one of those other jobs as successful as caregiver? No, it won't be. But collectively, you now have twice as many people to look at. Doesn't seem terrible. So let's talk about job boards. We talked about the office company job board. I'm not gonna hit that again. I think it's important that you have one. You should have one if you work with us. You already have one. Third-party job boards, Indeed is the winner by far. Lots and lots of people come from Indeed. But there are others, LinkedIn Jobs, Google for Jobs, and Glassdoor. These are the ones that we post to from applicant stack for the offices that work with us. Again, so for the job boards, for every 10 candidates applying for a job from Indeed, there's an additional one applying for another for job board. Okay, so this one is not super awesome, but let me say this. For the amount of work that it is, which literally, here's the amount of work, I don't uncheck those checkboxes in applicant stack when I publish the job. That's the amount of work. I don't do extra work to uncheck those boxes. And if you're an office that gets, 30, 40, 50 candidates a month, that's 3, 4, 5 more people for you to look at. It's not nothing. Together, they add together. All right, we're moving fast. Here we go. Additional markets. This is the hardest to explain, and so I'm going to take just a second and make sure I'm explaining well what we're doing here, because I think it's paid off really, really well for us. So if you search for a job on Indeed, again, Indeed's the winner by far. Indeed defaults to within 25 miles. So when you search for a caregiver job, I'm using Tyler, Texas, it's where I live, it's going to show you any job that was posted within 25 miles of Tyler, Texas. I love it that when I pulled this screenshot, we actually won. I mean, this is our job for Tyler. We were #1 on the list. Makes me so happy that gets to be in the screenshot. I didn't plan that. So they're going to list out the jobs real quick. This is the 119 I was mentioning earlier. There's 119 caregiver jobs in Tyler. This is the number we're tracking across all those markets. It shows it in the search results in Indeed. Okay, back to 25 miles. So it's going to show any job that comes up within 25 miles of Tyler, Texas that's been posted there. What we do for some offices is we post the job in cities that are slightly outside that 25 miles. So like, here's an example if you go to the next one. So here's Jacksonville. Jacksonville is barely 25 miles outside of Tyler. And when I search for a caregiver in Jacksonville, Texas, now instead of 114, I only have 42. There's fewer people competing in these smaller markets for jobs. Now, granted, there are probably fewer people searching. It's a smaller town, I get that, but there's less competition there, and we're spreading the net as wide as we can. So if you go, so basically what we're doing here, again, this is my graphic that I've made for the Tyler office. So by posting jobs in Tyler, obviously that's where the Tyler office is, and then in Jacksonville, which is slightly more than 25 miles, and in Mineola, which is slightly more than 25 miles, we're covering all of this area for people who might potentially be searching for a job without paying for it. When these are not sponsored. These are free job postings that we're doing in these markets on the office's behalf to try to get more people to apply. So here's my 2 quick caveats before we show the stick figure slide for this one. Remember, these are not areas to serving clients. I'm not by posting a job there, I'm not saying that you will service a client there. You know, we have to separate this too far. You're like, I would never want to drive all the way to Mineola. I know you wouldn't want to drive all the way to Mineola. I'm not saying you will drive all the way to Mineola. What I'm saying is someone in Mineola may be willing to drive into town. We call this, people are used to driving into work. We say going into town. If you live in these places, you're used to going into town. You might go into town every day. You might go into town 3 days a week. These people are not going to be nearly as opposed to driving into town to go to work as maybe a caregiver that you have that lives in town that you say, hey, I need you to drive 25 miles to go meet this client. They're like, oh my gosh, I spent all day in my car. We're not talking about, it's the inverse. And so don't lose me here. We're not trying to serve clients in these areas. We're just trying to make a wider net for going to find caregivers. Does it work? So for every 5 people that apply in a single market, there's 4 more that apply in one of the secondary markets outside. It's almost double. I wanted to get this down to the double slide, but I didn't feel good about it. I couldn't round it that far. It's almost double. We're getting almost twice as many people for you to consider as a candidate by posting in these other markets slightly outside of town. Now, we've worked with a number of offices. Sometimes it's hard to find 2. It's hard to find 2 cities that people still live in that are more than 25 miles, you know, and I get that. We've got some offices that are just doing 2. We've got one right now that we're piloting 4. We're trying to figure out, we're going to do 4 for a while and just see which ones stick, and then we'll drop 1 and we'll go back to doing 3. We're just going to continue to work together to try to solve this problem. But this has worked really well, and it's very low cost. My last stick figure slide here is Craigslist. I know some of you have had mixed experience on Craigslist. I'm not going to say that it's magic. What I am going to say is the offices that are doing it, for every 4 that you get on a job board, you get kind of a bonus 5th one from Craigslist. It's pretty cost effective. It depends on your market. They have different pricing points. It's probably $30, $20, $30, maybe $40 a month to post on Craigslist. And again, we got to fight that scarcity mentality. The idea here is let's put as many people into this funnel as we can using these different tactics to try to meet your caregiver needs. So that's I think my last stick figure slide. Just a couple other quick things to be thinking about. Again, for you and for your office, this is that nurturing process I talked about. We have offices, so let me back up. We track, I mentioned getting the right information at the right time. So our job application has name, email address, and phone number. That's all we get on the first step. And you're in the system, and then we send you a link that says, please complete the rest of the job application. I track the percentage of people that go from, hey, I gave you my contact information, to, hey, I finished my application. We have some offices at 12%, some at 49%. Obviously, there's a ton of complexity around people in parts of the country and what does unemployment look like. My point is this number can obviously be affected. It's not all based on what part of the country you live in. There are some things that offices are doing to move people along that process. So my question to you is, what are you doing? What is your process for following up with these people that gave you their phone number and email address? What's your timing? How often are you doing it? How regular are you doing it? And then what's your messaging? Are you saying, hey, we saw you expressed interest, we'd love to talk to you? Or are you saying, want to make $500 next month? I think communicating something that is appealing to a potential caregiver is going to be a good use of some time to sit down and think about how often do we want to reach out to these people and what do we want to say to them? Something for you all to think about. Sponsor jobs, this is that top right box on the foundation. You can give money to the job board companies. Typically, we recommend doing this on Indeed just because it seems to be the biggest player for this type of space. You need to decide on your monthly budget, how much do you want to spend. To my knowledge, I don't think Indeed has a max. I think they'll let you spend as much as you want to spend. And I'll say the cost and results vary based on competition. We have some offices that are just spending a couple $100 a month on Indeed, doing very well. And we have other offices that are spending a lot more than that, again, also doing well. It's been when that competition, it depends on how many jobs are in that market and how many other people are paying to sponsor their jobs in that market. So it's just something we have to dialogue about. I'm wrapping up here. If you haven't gathered it from our time together, I wanted to make sure I had a clear slide that says what Homecare Interact offers. We offer a recruiting platform with ongoing maintenance, so we do the job posting for you. One of the things that's unique about the ATS systems out there is I feel like most software, when you buy it, you get to start using it. And it's a little bit weird that when you pay for an applicant tracking system, you really can't start using it until you put all the jobs in. It's like you can't put a candidate in until you have a job to apply them for. And it's really just kind of baseline work, and so we can do that for you. We've got jobs, you can give us jobs, we can get them all in there, we can keep them rotated, and then your team can focus on following up with candidates and not just keeping the software running. And then the last thing is, we love to talk about this kind of stuff. You can call Emily anytime. Cody and I would love to hop on a call and talk about these things. So in addition to just the software platform, we'd love to talk with you about where to spend some other money, what other knobs to turn, things like that. I think this is my wrap-up slide here. Recruiting caregivers is hard. I wish I could tell you that there was a silver bullet. There's not. It's a lot of little things that work together to try to meet this need. Homecare Interact really likes thinking about these types of problems. Cody and I really do. And we like working to try new things. I mentioned we've got some offices that are trying some new caregiver titles. We're trying those caregiver titles at a different time of the week. We're trying to see maybe this day of the week effect, how it shows up in the rankings on the day of the week that maybe a caregiver's looking for a job. We like trying new things. We like experimenting and seeing what happens. We want to make sure that you're equipped the best that you can to try to get the caregivers you need. So that was when I was going to hand it off to a discussion, but I have no idea if we're still having a discussion at 10 after 1. That is a lot of information.
You got 4 minutes.
I'll just go for it. So do y'all have any thoughts, questions, suggestions? Again, I would say nothing is,
All right.
Cody and I love talking about stuff, so nothing's going to be off limits.
One thing I'd say about the applicant stack that Cody's team is awesome. I kind of got my own internal process of how I like to track the candidates, and they went in and they customized my dashboard for me so that it fit my process, so I didn't have to change my process and my staff's process to meet applicant stack. Applicant stack actually now works with the way we do it. And thank you for that, because that's really great. I appreciate that. Also, I think we're the first office to the text messaging thing, and that's helped too as well.
Has it been good?
It has. It's another point of contact when we get callbacks. That's got to be one of the questions I need my staff asking. Are you returning a voicemail or a text?
Right. Yes.
I don't have that information yet, but we're getting more callbacks.
Okay.
And also, what we found is when they're applying. Most people apply in Indeed not to one job; they'll do like 5.
Right.
So they get beat up pretty quick. And so I found by reaching back out to them 2 or 3 days later,
right,
sometimes a week or 2 later, we're able to bring a lot more back in. And it's worked again this week. We kind of recycle back through some old ones, and we got some more people in.
That's awesome. So, yeah, that's that timing thing. Timing is super important.
So yeah, it maybe not be when it's first fresh, try it then, try it 2 or 3 days later, try it a week or 2 later. Yeah. We already paid for the week.
Right, yeah, exactly.
What's the texting thing?
So Applicant Stack has a fairly new offering. We've tried it. I think Matt's using it. I think Derek is as well, where you can text from Applicant Stack. So you can go in and find that candidate and say, hey, I want to shoot
in
them
the
a text.
office or the main person, because we got one person in the office that Applicant Stack's under her email, so to speak. So can everybody in the office do the text, or would it be that one?
Well, they have to be logged into Applicant Stack. So you may have multiple people logging into Applicant Stack. I don't know for your particular office, but you do the texting from Applicant Stack. It comes up in the window. You get assigned a phone number. We pick a phone number in your local market. It becomes your kind of like Applicant Stack texting phone number, and then you can text back and forth. It's fairly new, and they're also coming out with new stuff. I need to talk to you and Derek both about it. They're continuing to make it better, which I'm really excited about.
It's just an add-on that we just pass on. I think it's $25, and then we just charge more. We just pass that along. So, but it's not super rich features, but it works really well. I mean, obviously, Matt and I think Derek would say the same thing. It's just a way in which they can simply respond via text, not just email stuff. I want to remind y'all, we are going to be here the rest of the day. You know, I'm sure have a ton of questions, and I know there's a lot of struggle right now with recruiting, and we want to be aware of that and making sure we're trying to answer as many questions as possible. But he said that access care is, they're supposed to start basically right now, and so some of y'all may need to do bathroom breaks and those kind of things. And we just appreciate y'all. Thank you for letting us be here and chat a little bit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for lunch.
Yeah, thank you for lunch.
I've never had this before.
Like, it was good. No carbs at all.
Yeah, no.
Carb free.
If you get a voicemail, I automatically put a, really? So I know not more than 9 times I have to do that.
All right.
So I make it a
Thank you.
voicemail.
So,
As soon as I save it.
Homecare gonna be hanging out still, and they'll be there this evening too for continued offline meeting combos.
We'll talk about.
What is it?
Oh man, we need more of it. More of it. Okay, guys, we're gonna do a quick 5-minute bio break. So, access care is usually one of those longer Q&A'ers. So,
Everybody in your office have a lawn?
Go to assist
Just myself.
that presentation.
that's right. Yes, you.
Sounds bad.
The 2 of you are like access care judges, which is great. Like
No,
And I walked over there, she asked me,
We were doing in the middle of our survey.
"Is home care?" I am.
I was trying to do something,
Is it working? I don't
or
know.
not, I just wasn't thinking, so I was like, hey, I'll call you.
I'm saying, I send everything to you, and then you post it.
So like something faster, you know?
It was easy stuff, you just needed the help.
Well, no shortage of that from you, Landon.
Yeah.
We lost a bunch of.
Like, you're way faster than you are.
She
We wanna-
did not.
We can get a dongle?
Let's kill each other.
Hi, how are you?
Great, how are you?
Good, good. Good to see you.
Where to come back and get
Yeah.
There's a power of them, though, isn't it? Don't be test
I still have the name badge as well.
I always feel like,
Oh, I mean, I'm not.
perfect way to explain it, it feels like you're drowning and someone just handed you a bait.
That's how
No, I get
whenever
that.
you fire it all, so it's like,
No, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Well, imagine sitting in an office all day like this.
yeah, click share. And it's just for it's like Apple TV or Chromecast, and you download software on your laptop or even your iPhone, and you can like cast it up.
So I charge my phone.
One fewer thing to do there.
I just don't know where you can.
You have the link. Yep, okay.
I have never heard of
Keep
that.
the Wi-Fi.
Chris or somebody with you
There's a-
today? Are they just?
They're online
Oh.
Is there an outlet back
Stop
here?
recording.
I'm okay, I mean,
You sure?
I've got about a quarter of the white